So today I'd like to talk about what I'd like to call the delay dilemma. Try saying that fast 10 times. But you know what I'm saying when I say the delay dilemma. It's pretty self-explanatory, right? Developers and publishers are in this dilemma when, for some reason, whatever reason it may be, they can't meet the deadline that they originally set forth, known as the release date of a game. So they have one of two options in dealing with that situation. The first option, which is the most common option, is to just release the game as is. It could be as broken and buggy as it is, but they figure, okay, so many people pre-order the game anyway before knowing how good or bad the game is, so reviews don't mean shit. Media coverage doesn't mean shit because we still made our money. So I made that video about pre-orders, the last video about pre-orders, and that kind of inspired me to make this one because the reason why games are released so broken and buggy in the first place, and the reason why that happens so often, is because of how prevalent pre-orders are and how many people are just stupid enough to pre-order their games, especially in the digital age. You know, like if you're going to pre-order a game to reserve a copy, a physical copy, then I said last video, that's fine. But in the digital market, it just blows my mind. Digital pre-orders make no sense to me. But because people are still stupid enough in the digital age to pre-order their games, that is an option because they already have guaranteed money before the game even comes out. So whether or not the game is good or bad doesn't really impact their bottom line. So they don't care about that. So that's why that happens so much. And another main reason why that happens so much is because typically EA, Activision, Ubisoft, and other companies, they strategically plan out their release date. They say, look, we're releasing this game during the holiday season. This is your deadline. Meet it by this deadline because the video game industry is the hottest around October, November, December. Those are the 3 hottest months in the video game industry. Once January starts rolling around, it just becomes completely dead. Spring, you have a lot of good, some good numbers. But you really should, fall is really where the most money is made. So with pre-orders combined with the fact that parents just buy their kids whatever game they want for Christmas anyway, and that's where the most money is at. They have this, they're corporations. They make calculated business decisions. They know the risks. You saying that they shouldn't release buggy games because fans are going to go nuts. You don't think they know that fans are going to go nuts if they release a broken game, but they do it because it's a calculated decision. Okay, they feel like even with the backlash, and they may lose more sales by releasing a broken game than if they had the game all the deadlines met. You know what I mean? Like if Call of Duty was broken at release date, obviously they would have made more money if the game was perfect in November when it releases, as opposed to it being broken in November. Obviously, the first one would make more money. But they feel like they would still make more money with a broken, buggy game than if they waited until spring, when sales just take a nosedive. So that's why they do the first thing, and not the second one, which is delaying the game and making sure the game is polished and finished. Why do you think Fallout 4 was released in the horrible state that it was? And online games, I understand. You don't expect the huge number of players, and you can't really beta test what hundreds and thousands, millions of people are going to do, the way that they're going to act. So you can't really tell which weapons need to be buffed, which weapons need to be nerfed, which is OP, which is UP, and how well your service can handle a huge influx of players. But when it comes to games that have a single-player component to them at least, or even games that do have multiplayer, and they're just like Battlefield 4, come on, there's no excuse for that. Okay, GTA Online is a whole different situation, but Battlefield 4, come on. Come on. That game was a broken, buggy mess, and they knew that. They weren't going to delay the game, though, because they figured it's the holiday season. People are going to buy that game no matter what, because it's Battlefield. It's a household name. And that's the calculated decision they made. But it's an interesting dilemma because both options do cause negative effects to it. So if you release a broken game, public perception really shifts in a negative way. EA was voted the worst company 2 years in a row, and EA still to this day doesn't have a good reputation because a lot of the broken, buggy games that they've released. Battlefield 4, for example. Sims, another great example. So their public perception is negatively affected, and that has long-term effects on their bottom line. May not show that initially. Oh, Battlefield 4 has good sales numbers, so who cares? Or with Activision or Bungie. Destiny 2 has great sales, but if Destiny 3 comes out, you think it's going to do as well? So many people were disappointed. They have buyer's remorse for buying Destiny 2. And it's not even because it was buggy, it's just because it just wasn't finished. You know what I mean? So they could have delayed it and made sure it was polished, but they figured, releasing a game in October is much more lucrative than releasing a game in January, February, March. You know what I mean? Notice that the most successful franchises are always released in the holidays, and the less successful ones are released in the spring. That's for a reason. They release them in the spring, so there's less competition, and that there's more breathing room for them. Because in the holiday season, there's just so many games come out. If you're a no-name game franchise, you're going to release the title in the spring. But on the other hand, if you delay the game, people get upset. People are like, hey, I pre-ordered this game, and you said it was going to be released on this date, and you keep delaying it and delaying it and delaying it, and it gets people more angry, and also the hype of that game dies down over time. The hype of Red Dead Redemption 2 right now is nothing compared to the hype that it once had. Even though the game is going to be a huge success, when you keep delaying the game, keep delaying it and delaying it and delaying it, the hype dies down a lot. So that's the other possible negative effect of delaying the game. And even though you're doing the right thing and making sure that the game is finished, there are some downsides to that. You piss off a lot of people. Either way, you piss off a lot of people. You obviously piss off a lot more people when you do the first option, which is just release the game and, we'll get around to fixing it. We'll patch it every now and then. And it'll be, like Battlefield 4 is a great example. It took like a year for that game to be polished after release date. But it became a huge success story. Battlefield 4 was just immensely successful, and it still lasts today. You still have a strong player base in Battlefield 4 today. So looking at that, maybe releasing a game broken and buggy in the age of the internet is not such a bad idea. Because, first of all, you have a lot of hardline fans that are going to defend them no matter what, saying, oh, just wait for the patch, wait for the patch. You're always going to have those hardcore fans that are never going to question what they do. Or the casual fans as well. They're just like, oh, the game was released and it's buggy. Fuck. But, you know what I'm saying, though, right? Battlefield 4 definitely, people say it set a precedent for not releasing buggy games, but it also kind of sets a precedent to release buggy games and broken games, because they released the game broken, but it ultimately didn't affect Battlefield 4 in a negative way. That really, Battlefield 4 did immensely well. So really, one thing or the other, it's a calculated business decision and nothing else. And it's up to developers and publishers really to decide which option will be the most profitable and be the most beneficial for them in the long run. If Call of Duty delays until March, you really think they're going to make as much money as if they released the game in October? Probably not. So it's all calculated, but it's definitely a huge dilemma because it's really it's really a coin toss whether or not the first one will benefit them the most or the second one will benefit them the most. Releasing the game as is, no matter how broken it is, and not delaying the game, versus delaying the game and just the hype of that game completely dying down. Good example. Remember Agent? If you don't, I won't be surprised. But look up Agent. Rockstar Games Agent. That game was announced in E3 of 2009. Yeah. And it wasn't officially canceled, too. But who talks about Agent these days? But apparently it's still a game that's in the works. Just they haven't gotten around to making it. But that's what happens. And that's why Bethesda doesn't announce games until it's finished. People criticize them. You should really, you should talk. But now people are going to keep talking about Elder Scrolls 6 even more. But it's probably not going to come out until like 2021 or 2022. Maybe even later. You know what I mean? So that's why Bethesda did that in the first place. Because they wanted to announce the game when they knew it was going to be released on that day. And ironically enough, they still release broken games, but at least they try. They announce the release date when it's close to being finished. So, again, it's all calculated decision, nothing else.